What is up, everybody? This is Sugi Shogun returning after 3 weeks, and I've been gaining a lot of subs, even though I haven't been uploading anything, which kind of makes me feel a bit bad, so I decided to review something for the time being. So I watched this Netflix original anime series, which came out in last December, called Lookism, which is based on a South Korean webtoon of the same name, and it was also animated by a South Korean studio known as Studio Mir. They are known from their work at Big Fish and Begonia, Dota Dragon's Blood, The Boondukes, and obviously their most known work, which is The Legend of Korra. And I have to say, as a side note, this is incredibly underrated studio, and the only reason why weebs are not circle jerking around the studio is really the only fact that it's Korean and not Japanese. Like, this is how illogical weebs generally are. If it's not Trigger, if it's not Ghibli or Bones, it's not even worth talking about it, basically, in their minds. But I do think that Mir has done a pretty good job with this anime in total when we're looking into animation. It may not be their best work altogether. I feel like there were perhaps certain things which felt like, okay, they maybe had a bit of a limited budget and time to basically work with this anime, or maybe it was just broken down into two different parts. I don't know. But let's talk about this. What exactly is Lookism about? So our main protagonist is Hyung Suk. Okay, that was probably really bad, brutal pronunciation of the Korean name. And he's this basically unpopular fat guy in high school, and he's basically looked down by every other person because he's obese and basically ugly looking. And he's basically harassed by the delinquents of that school, and he takes out his anger basically in a verbal sense to his mother and blames mother for everything that he is going through. And I mean, to be fair, I guess the genes are passed from the mother to the son, so I guess there's some merit to those arguments, but mostly not in terms of the actual storytelling here. Now, then he's kind of basically decided that I'm going to be changing my life and I'm going to be moving into this new school. And turns out, when he goes into sleep, he actually transforms into another person that is actually very good looking and just, very athletic, strong, and beautiful voice, and the whole complete, package there in terms of popularity among men and women at this new school, basically. But this is what it makes it kind of interesting here, is that instead of him being actually transforming into this guy, it's that there's now two bodies, okay? Once the fat guy goes to sleep, the new guy basically wakes up, and when the new guy goes to sleep, then the fat guy basically wakes up. So they basically are building out this sort of a cycle, and they obviously have to explain why they are living together and why there's a other guy sleeping on the apartment in the middle of the day and all that type of stuff. And I think it's a very brilliant setup. There has been these types of gender swap stories, but in this particular instance, the way that they have tailored out this story, I think it's pretty unique, and I don't think I have seen exactly something like this. There's your werewolf stories and people transforming into something, but this is not transforming. It's just that your consciousness basically transforms from one body to another body. Now, a lot of the themes in this anime are inherently very Korean. If you don't know anything about the Korean society, obviously, it is extremely materialistic. It's the place which has most amount of plastic surgeries in the world. It's not America, it's actually South Korea that has the most amount of plastic surgeries, and looks are almost everything in this society. And then there's obviously the K-pop and the idol culture, which play also a significant part in this story. And it's a very Korean story. That's kind of also why I like this story, because when we have these, Korean webtoons which have been adapted, like The Tower of God and Noblesse and all these others, they are inherently a bit different from your run-of-the-mill anime out there. And anime has been in this bit of a stage where it hasn't really it hasn't really evolved from its archetypes. There has been very little development in last 20 years, basically, in terms of new genres evolving. And obviously there's this whole isekai thing going on right now, but that is nothing new. That has existed for many times. It's just becoming more trendy again. So Japanese people are not exactly like innovating these new stories exactly here in terms of the storytelling, and that's why I've been finding these Korean adaptations of their webtoons really refreshing, because they are telling these stories in a different way, in different formats, and usually the setup of the stories, even Tower of God, is like kind of like a shonen anime, but the setup of the whole anime is just fundamentally very different from what we have seen before, how it fundamentally works. Now, obviously, when this body swap is happening, there is like, the fat guy is basically working at a convenience store, and the other one is going to school. So not both of them are going into the school, because obviously they are like changing the daytime and nighttime between each other. And if the other one wakes the other one up, obviously that's when they change bodies as well. And I really like this dynamic. So in top of this, I don't know what, it's not a gender swap. It's kind of like a body swap of sorts. And then you have these elements of like, the main character having some type of desires to become a singer, and he has actually a really good voice in both of his forms, actually, but it's not like this is his dream. It's not explicitly like told in his subconscious narration what happens in the anime that this is his dream, but it's something that he likes to do, and eventually like the season kind of ends on a bit of like this sort of a show. But also at the same time, as he has manifested into this new body, he understands that there are like these physical powers, and he will get into actual fights with some of the other students in the school. So there's a bit of like a fighting also. So it's not like some type of a fashion idol shit. It's a lot about like, there is this sort of like a physical aspect to these delinquents who are fighting each other, and they're beating up people and being bullies and etc. And there are some good character development, like some turn characters are really like fucking jackasses in the beginning, and then they kind of gradually are changed by Park, who is the main character, and he kind of makes that well, not just dialogue, but just like the general events that take place in the anime, and makes them basically change a bit about their behavior and stop being a bit of a jackasses. And there are some romantic aspects also in the mix, but there seems to be a bit of these gay vibes also, kind of like at the same time, like this sort of bisexual paradigm. Like there are a lot of females who are like in much love with Park, but there's not exactly like a very deep development between any of the women in the series. There are multiple, but let's say there's three major ones, which are like kind of low-key attracted into Park, and it's just like fundamentally those developments haven't really started out yet, so maybe they are going to be progressing later on in the story, and that's something that we always want to see. And obviously I think there's going to be both male and female attractions for Park, and that's where a lot of the story is going to revolve around. Now, putting all of that aside, I think the plot is pretty good. It takes a bit of time to basically, until I got hooked. I didn't get hooked on the very first episode on this one, but after like a couple of episodes, I was like really sold on the idea, because I think it was unique. And these types of stories can be spin around a lot of ways, and you can basically make them last for a very long time, because they kind of already allude to that in the last episode, like why this can spin around. I'm not going to spoil it, but you know what I'm talking about. Let's talk about a bit of the animation and all the other stuff here. So, as I already said in the beginning, I don't think this is Studio Mir's best animation work. I think there are some good-looking moments there and there. They use, they have a good technique when they are using forms of 3D in this animation. You can see that on the last episode, especially, where they are using these sort of 3D movements. But there are a lot of like, they use certain like the shots of the school multiple times. I never had a really big problem with this. It's more about like how much of a one picture in the screen is going to be lasting in terms of seconds. Like if it's like, there are these weird, I don't like it when they just show a still image and there's no zooming or anything like that. There is sound on the background, but there is no form of zoom or like, having a focal point on the picture, which is getting like highlighted in it. So that's kind of weird to me, why people do these decisions. I don't know. I haven't talked to the directors. But it's not something I would do if I was like chart of the direction. Let's talk about a bit of the audio here. So there is a different voice actor for Park when he is in the different forms, basically, okay? And obviously this is in Korean. This is not in Japanese, and I obviously suggested watching it Korean because I think it's... I haven't tried out any of the dubs, by the way, but I think it's going to be actually very bad experience to watch it on Japanese dub or on the English dub, because the songs that they are performing, there are a couple of these songs, and they are going to be in Korean, so I don't know if those like dubbed songs actually sound any good, if they even actually dubbed them in those dubs. Now, I have to say that the journal OST isn't like anything to really brag about here. I mean, pretty non-existent, let's be fair about it. And that's really the case of any, product by Studio Mir or any other South Korean animated series that I ever seen. I don't think there's a lot of emphasis on, making these amazing OSTs. But then the songs that they do perform in this series are actually pretty good. So the background music is like doesn't matter, and the OP, I think it's okay. It's decent. It's your generic K-pop with some rap lines on the mix, and the ED is it's actually, and funnily enough, it kind of reminds me of these early 2000 anime EDs, and like it just doesn't sound very Korean track. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, so I think the OST is like kind of non-existent outside from the actual title tracks and rap parts that you see some of the characters perform in the series. And in terms of the animation, also like it's kind of run-of-the-mill. I think it's not really the focus point of this whole anime altogether. It's about the story. It's about this, overall, what they're trying to talk about, this materialistic style of a living and how people have so much prejudice for people who are fat and etc. And the thing is, this is actually applying to anyone in the Western world and in the Asian world, is that if you don't look bad, you don't put like effort into staying fit and staying in shape, you are going to be treated poorly. That's just like a fundamental thing. Even in a subconscious level, when you go into talk with the cashier when you're buying or shopping something, you are going to be treated well if you are better looking. This is like a scientifically a true thing. And I have always emphasized people to work out, lose weight, and put some effort into maybe getting a haircut or something. And these will actually go a long way. You will feel have better, encounters, and that will basically enforce and enhance your own experience with the world and the people you interact with, and makes you feel a bit more better about yourself. But I do agree that there is this sort of a massive materialistic look into how people look in Korea, especially. But the irony of that is that even if you go through multiple forms of, plastic surgeries, those are not like genes which your children will inherit. So even if you marry some very good looking woman in Korea, the chances are, if they have gone through a million fucking plastic surgeries, the kids can look like very, very awful. I mean, I think there was this like famous, a Chinese story where the man basically sued the wife for having for the kids looking like absolutely awful because the wife had gone too many plastic surgeries. But I'm actually hoping that there is going to be an additional season for Lookism. I thought it was a very refreshing style of a story. It might not be for everybody's case. It is a bit of slice of life, but I do think that there is decent forms of action going on here to kind of make it feel less like some type of a shoujo, male only fans thing for women. I think there is some type of appeal here in terms of self-improvement and stuff like that. And the main character will change kind of his own perspectives, and he will kind of, I don't know what the ending is going to be, and that's going to be interesting, the thing that will eventually the new body fade away, or will it die, or whatever will happen. Like, that will be interesting thing to see. So I kind of want to see the ending and where they are going to be going on with it. But I'm going to wrap it up here, guys, and make sure to subscribe and leave comments if there's any. And I will be seeing you in the next review when that will be dropping out. Cheers.